Right, chaps. I think we've got to rub our hands together, get some energy going for this podcast. Come on. That's it. Can you feel the energy?
It's enveloping me.
Right, welcome to the Gun Room, Pod 60. It's the new season. We've got lots on the go. We're back for real. It's the first full 90 minutes of the season. With me is Jay. All right, Jay, how you doing?
Oh, very good, very good.
And also the impartialness of Paul Mc Parlan. People will go, isn't he an Everton supporter? Well, yes, but he doesn't mention it out loud or at dinner parties or anything. Not at the moment. So how are you, Jay?
I am very good, very good.
You nearly got a drink then, didn't you?
I nearly did, yeah.
Paul, I'll ask you, how are you? You can have a drink and probably talk out or blink.
Yeah, I can multitask with the best of them, Tom. But yeah, great to be on the show. Thanks for inviting me on. Good chatting to Jay again, and I know we had a good discussion towards the end of the season about how things were at Arsenal. So looking forward to this one.
Right, first off, I think we should mention the England girls because we haven't had a chance. We've been off air. So brilliant victory over the Germans. Very feisty little affair, wasn't it? Which Lauren mentions on the audio pod. A bit of a bonus for us because we had Leah Williamson and Beth Mead. Did you see it, Jay?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, they did really well. And it was great to see like a packed Wembley.
81,000.
Yeah, fantastic, and yeah, they deserve everything and all of the rewards from winning the trophy. It was a great performance and brilliant scenes at the end, and you live in hope that coach she can hang around for a little while because she knows what she's doing, doesn't she? So yeah, great scenes at Wembley, superb.
Paul, shot in the arm for women's football. Not that it needed it, because it's been on the climb, hasn't it, for a few years now. But this will do it no harm at all, will it? At grassroots level, at schools, if they're not introducing football for girls, then I don't know what the whole point of it was.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, it was a massive boost for women's football. Like Jay, I watched the game as well. I enjoyed the whole thing. They had there was the right balance of tension during the game as well. At one stage I thought, Germany were going to sneak it, but then we held our nerves. And isn't it just great to beat the German side in the European final in extra time? It really was. And I mean, Chloe Williams, ex-Everton player as well, delighted for her. And yeah, I mean, the way they conducted themselves, I love the after-match interviews as well because they weren't restrained at all. I think the captain said, it's great, we've done it for England. You never really hear England players say that often. They seem really proud to represent their country. And in terms of creating a precedent and sort of establishing as role models for young girls, you really could not ask for a better example. And the way the Pires did on the press conference after the game, singing "Football's Coming Home." I mean, can you imagine the England team doing that? I mean, their ages wouldn't let them, would they? Their Twitter managers wouldn't allow that sort of exuberance. So it was absolutely brilliant. And I think that any young girl growing up wanting to get into the press, and what's a brilliant, shining example that was. And also as well, you mentioned there, Tom, about establishing girls' footballs in schools. I mean, I know locally here, not that many secondary schools offer a football route for the girls, and I think that's going to have to change. And I think one interesting thing to consider here will be, in the school system, netball has always been the girls' game. Are we going to get to a situation where netball gets bypassed and football becomes the default girls' game? I don't know.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, I think that it was kind of really weird that out of all the success and all the celebrations and everything, they just went on about a bra, seeing a bra.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple.
I know. And Gary Lineker didn't help with his stupid Twitter post either, did he?
No, that didn't go down too well, did it? Right, let's get to the Palace game. Before we do, let's mention the away fans again because they were absolutely superb in good voice. And don't adjust any colour on your screen. I've been down on Folkestone Beach. That's why I look like a lobster. Right, the lineup for Arsenal was Aaron Ramsdale, Ben White, William Saliba, Gabriel Zinchenko. I've been practicing. Thomas Partey, Granit. It's Xhaka, apparently, not Xhaka. We've been saying it wrong for ages, but Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli, and Gabriel Jesus. Jay, were you happy with that lineup?
Yeah, no surprises. I think it was the same team that played in that last friendly, wasn't it, against Seville? I suppose the only it wasn't even contentious inclusion, but Zinchenko playing at left back ahead of Tierney, I suppose, but Tierney hadn't really featured in pre-season. So yeah, happy with that lineup. No surprises. We strong team, as strong a team as we've had for a long time.
Yeah, I felt quite confident going into the game. We'll talk about the game. There's been a lot of sort of negative and positives as well. And we'll try and dust off those negatives because they annoy me. Paul, did you see the game? What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first game in the Premier League. It was the first game in the Premier League season, and it seems Arsenal have a slot boot now, don't they? It's second season running, but yeah,
we slipped him a few quid.
Yeah, I watched it, and I have to say, I was very impressed with Arsenal. I mean, for the first game of the season, all you want, away from home, you want a solid performance. You want the teams to look defensively coherent. You want the attackers to offer a bit of a threat. And I don't think you can underestimate the going to Crystal Palace on the first game of the season with their vociferous support. It's a really, really difficult match to have for your first game of the season. So I was very impressed with Arsenal's performance. To me, they never looked in any danger. They snuffed out the threat from Palace, particularly in midfield. I mean, Esse, who's been touted as this fabulous midfield player, I don't think got a look in against the Arsenal midfield. And I think the whole performance was very professional. Took the chances that were given. I know Martinelli missed a superb chance in the first half, but they didn't let that upset them. And overall, I always think for the first game of the season, what you don't want to do is get thumped and get the fans on your back, or win about 4 or 5-0, get everyone going overboard, not being realistic about where you are at the moment. So in terms of the first game of the season, it's a London derby. It's tough opposition. You win quite comfortably. And if I was an Arsenal, I'd have been quite satisfied with that start. I assume you guys were.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing: with all this negativity that's flowing about, you picked up on it there, Paul. It's not an easy place to go. I think we won 1-3 in 2021, and before that, you had to go back to a 3-2 win in December 2017. And I think we lost this fixture last year, wasn't it? 3-0?
Yeah, 3-0, yeah.
So it's not an easy place to go. Mitch made the point a few pods back that the division, apart from the top two, it's kind of balancing out. There's a lot of action going on, and anyone on their day can beat anybody else before we carry on. Jay, would you concur with that? Big word, concur for the new teams.
I mean, you don't want to lose that first game. We saw how damaging that was last season when we went to Brentford and it's similar sort of atmosphere. Like it's and I think we were all a bit nervous and a bit anxious that it was going to go the same way. But we started so well, didn't we? The first 10-15 minutes, we absolutely swarmed all over them, and Jesus was dropping deep and picking the ball up, and there was Paul touched on Martinelli's chance that he missed. That was all down to some really great work from Jesus, sort of slaloming his way through. And he looked, like I say, Jesus looked dangerous, and collectively we would dominate the game. They weren't threatening at all. And that sort of when you start that way, it's so encouraging after such a good pre-season. So when obviously we got the goal, and then okay, we had to sort of soak up a bit of pressure, but you're going to go through periods like that at Selhurst Park against Palace because they're a decent side and they've got a good manager and they're solid and they've got Zaha, who's always an outlet on that left hand side, who's dangerous, and they're no mugs, so you're going to go through periods where you need to soak up a bit of pressure. But apart from a couple of chances, Ramsdale made a good save from Eze in the second half, and he made a good save from, I can't remember who was it, Ayu's header maybe in the first half. Apart from that, okay, we were under a bit of pressure, but I felt that we dealt with that really well. And I mean, like most Arsenal supporters, absolutely delighted to start with a win. And also, we haven't got to go back to Selhurst this season, which is a tough game for anyone, in it. So we've got it out of the way.
You don't want it at the tail end, do you, when things are getting a bit shoddy?
No, absolutely not.
Paul, let's talk about Patrick Vieira for a spell, because we'll roll all this in a ball in a minute because of the negativity and everything else. I mean, Vieira set Palace up in such a way that if anyone thought from an Arsenal point of view that we were just going to run away with it, be really creative and have the game all our own way for 90 minutes, they had another thing coming. In that particular game, you saw little triangles for me, little triangles of three people constantly shifting and moving, cutting down the space and making it tight for us. Paul, how good a job has that guy done in a single season?
Well, I don't think that you can underestimate how well Vieira's done during his time so far at Palace, and he's brought through some young players as well who fit into the team, really well. And I think, given his kind of lack of previous management experience for a number of years at the top level, to come in, change the culture of the club as well, because I mean, Roy Hodgson was kind of there for life, it seemed, at one stage as well. He's managed to turn that around. He's moved some players out. He's brought some younger players in. I think he's got a good eye for who to bring into the club as well. I mean, you saw that last season with the recruitment of Conor Gallagher, who I thought was excellent for them last season. I think he's going to be somebody who's going to be really hard for Palace to replace this season. I think, for me, watching the game last weekend, I think the one difficulty Palace may have this season is finding, and they're not the only team with this problem, is finding a consistent and regular goal scorer, because I wasn't too impressed with Edouard up front for them at all. But what you will get from a Palace team is the way they will close down, they will harry. Jay, you mentioned Ayew before. I mean, I was struck by a number of times the first half. He was leaving his foot in tackles against Arsenal players, really putting himself about, making sure the team had no time on the ball whatsoever. So there's certainly, I think Vieira is almost trying to get Palace to play the way he himself conducted himself as a player, not giving the opposition time on the ball, not giving them any space. And I just think they need someone to provide the finishing touch. You mentioned Zaha, Tom, yeah, great player, but to me, he doesn't quite have the end product you'd expect somebody with his skill to have week in, week out. And I think most teams have kind of realised now with Palace, if you can stop the spikes of Zaha, you do cut down a lot of the Palace threat. So I think it's going to be a challenging season for Palace this season. And it'll be a real test of you as a manager. And I think losing Conor Gallagher, who to me was a powerhouse for them last season, whether they can change the system to overcome his loss and loss, we'll have to wait and see how the season develops.
Can we see them actually doing inside the top 10? I can actually, as you say, Paul, lacking a striker, and hopefully they'll remedy that in the last throes of the transfer window. Jay, 7th or 8th for them?
I don't know.
Doable, isn't it?
Maybe a bit ambitious. I don't know. I think that they need that goal scorer. And, Gallagher was such a big player for him last season, scoring goals from midfield and driving through the heart of teams, that they kind of, they need to maybe identify somebody who can do a similar job. What you will get with Palace, and this is what Vieira has done so well, is he sort of molded them into sort of an image of himself as a player. They're very strong and very solid. You're never going to get an easy game. I was quite impressed with their centre half. Was it Anderson at the back, who everybody was raving about his passing, and he was decent. And they've still got good players like that. Mateta up front, he's quite good. He's a bit of a handful, big guy. But they just need, I think they need a little bit more guile, and a sort of a number 10. And I think they'll be, I mean, they're not going to get relegated, I don't think, but I think top 7 or 8 is a bit ambitious. I think maybe you're looking at between, say, 10 and 15th, maybe. I think would be a decent season, unless they strengthen.
What did you think of that Doucouré? He was a bit of a beast, wasn't he? He was putting his legs in left, right, and centre. He's a big old lump as well.
Yeah. I think they're so heavily reliant on Zaha, aren't they? You know, and he's, you know, we've said before, haven't we, Tom? He loves a dive, and he's one of the most frustrating players. But
I'll just let the podcast family know that I was in a pub called the Three Cups, and Jay was watching it wherever he was watching it, and we were, I can't stand that Zaha.
Yeah.
And there was a few words prior to that as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, they'll be fine. I think. I also, you know, I read about, you know, Vieira, he's bought into the club properly, hasn't he? I think by all accounts he gets really involved in all aspects of the team, from you know, to the women's side and some of the disability sides. So that's, you know, for a foreign manager to, you know, who had no previous links to Palace to be doing that is fantastic. And he's you know, we all love him, don't we, Tom? You know, we love him.
Absolutely.
He's one of my heroes. So you only wish him well. It's only in these games against us that sort, you push that to one side, don't you? So, you know,
absolute legend, the guy is. Right, before we get on to the talking points of the match, let's go through some stats. I'll do the Palace stats first, and obviously Arsenal second. So 10 shots for each, 2 shots on target for each. Palace 57% possession, Arsenal 43. 554 passes for Palace, 431 for Arsenal. 86% pass accuracy, 81% for Arsenal. 1 yellow card for Palace, 2 for Arsenal. Thankfully, Mr. Xhaka didn't push his luck. Yeah. And we didn't get a red card. 1 offside versus 2 offsides, 3 corners for Palace, 5 for Arsenal. Really solid spell for about 20-25 minutes, I thought. And let's get to the goal. Saka's corner, Zinchenko's head back into the box for Martinelli, who missed an absolute sitter, didn't he? When Jesus virtually just dawdled through. Everyone kind of left him. They were mystified. But anyway, he got his head onto it, and it was a brilliant goal, I thought. Well overdue for him as well, Jay.
Yeah, it was lovely set piece, and you can tell they've been working on that, because out of most of those players in that Arsenal 11, I can't imagine Palace would have planned for Zinchenko popping up at the back post. So yeah, really well done. And I think if it wasn't Martinelli, I think there was a couple of others, weren't there, that could have popped it in as well. So lovely goal, and thoroughly deserved. We started so well. We so much pace, and we were so direct, and our passing was so crisp. You know, it's difficult to keep that going away from home, isn't it? That tempo when you haven't got the crowd on your side. But great start, great, lovely goal. And yeah, Martinelli, because I couldn't believe that miss. It was, I mean, how? I don't know. Really, it must have been a miss kick or something. It was a really, you know, bizarre miss. But yeah, lovely. Great to get that goal.
As we say, good first half. Second half, it kind of drifted off away from us until we got the cherry on the cake. Long periods of soaking up pressure for us, but we got the own goal. Guhi, did I get that right? Guhi, 85 minutes. But let's scoot back to the sort of contentious issues. Paul, Granit Xhaka shown a yellow card. What did you make of that? Bit of nonsense, wasn't it?
It was. It was something that could be quite easily avoided from his point of view as well, I think. But I think apart from that, he had a good game. I mean, I guess like you and Jay, the concern when you're watching as an Arsenal fan is he going to pick up the second one, because he's kind of he has a record of doing that in his Premier League career. But no, I thought he settled down. I thought he was quite composed during the game. I think the only concern I had in the first half of Arsenal was that the most of Palace's opportunities seemed to be created by Ramsdale with his distribution in the first half. A couple of times he darted on the ball a bit too long, and they had to hit the ball frantically to whoever was near to him. But I think he learned from that as the game went on, looked more solid after that. But yeah, I mean, those mistakes they could have proved costly. Fortunately, they didn't, and Arsenal went on to dominate the game, particularly in the first half. I thought in the first half there's only one team in it. You expect the Palace to come back in the second half, which they did, but to me they didn't I think Eze had quite a clear-cut chance in the second half, but apart from that, they didn't really create an awful lot of opportunities to score. I just always felt as a matter of time for Arsenal get the second goal. I know it's different from your point of view because you're supporting the team. It's like if I'm watching Everton, I can't see us scoring the second goal, but as a neutral, it just seems to me that Arsenal had the game, and had Palace exactly where they wanted them.
Well, when you start chasing a game and you're looking to get back on terms, that's when you leave yourself open, and that's how it stretched in the end. And there's some criticism of the individuals, and we'll get to that. But Jay, let's get to the Gabriel handball. VAR must have been turned off. I thought it was handball. Did you?
Yeah, we got lucky, didn't we? Yeah, we I think last season it would have been given, but I suppose that was a great example of this new rule, right? Towards aimed at VAR to they've raised the level a bit, haven't they? And going more towards common sense, I suppose, which is only a good thing. I just wanted to touch on Ødegaard had a couple of good chances, didn't he? Where he, in the game, we could have wrapped it up if he'd have just taken a shot. He had a. I don't know if this Paul might not identify with this, but Alex Hleb, when he played for us, he would just never shoot, never ever shoot. He'd be 2 yards out and he'd be looking for a pass, and he had an attack of the Alex Hlebs. Ødegaard did, and we could have wrapped the game up. And I just wanted to reiterate. I agree with you, Paul. First half, we dominated. Second half, put on the cosh a bit. But even then, Ødegaard takes one of those chances and it's game over, isn't it? So I just wanted to mention that because Ødegaard's taken a bit of a bit of a hammering, hasn't he, this week, Tom? But we got lucky with the handball. Well, not lucky. I don't think we got lucky because we've been, take your mind back to last season, Tom, when Martinelli had a goal disallowed for offside when he wasn't offside at home. Do you remember the header he scored on the line? I think it was against Brighton, where it was disallowed and he wasn't even offside. So VAR have done us over, and I'm sure that we've spoke about thousands, what seems like thousands of other times where VAR we've been on the receiving end of some harsh VAR decisions. So I was glad that, obviously glad that it wasn't given, but we. Long may it continue as well. Let's hope this season we get a few more.
I don't want to upset Paul. But I think one of the first decisions was it Godfrey, Tommy Ashu's face like
Ben Godfrey. Yes, Ben Godfrey, wasn't it?
Godfrey
stamped on him. Yeah, should have got.
Where did I get that name from? Gordon. Is there a Gordon?
Anthony Gordon, he's our young wing at the moment. At kind of his breakthrough season last year, so he's a really exciting prospect. And you might remember that in the derby at Anfield, he was blatantly shoved over by one of the Liverpool defenders, and it wasn't even referred to VAR. And he also, in my mind, he's the only player I've seen this season who, when he's gone to take a corner, the referee's gone charging over to make sure that the ball was in the circle before he kicked it in the Anfield derby. And if that's not biased refereeing, I really don't know what is.
Yeah. As I say, I haven't let that one go yet. I will be booing and hissing him when I see him on the match of the day or whatever.
Well, you won't see Godfrey for a while now because he's going to be out for at least 3-4 months. He's broken his leg after a bit of a chaotic sequence of events at Goodison, so he won't be back until December now.
Oh, right. Okay. Paul, your thoughts on Anthony Taylor, the referee's performance? I thought he did a sterling job. I thought it was brilliant. One of the best referee sort of things I've seen on an opening day for a while.
Yeah, he didn't make any particularly obvious errors to me. I mean, I know it's a low bar for judging good referees, but I think, he's adequate.
It's very unlike this pod to praise a referee, I'll tell you that. I don't think there are many fan pods that go around praising referees these days, are there? But what I would say was he's not a showman like Sir Mike Dean and people like that. Unlike Sir John Moss, he can keep up with play, which I think is quite a necessary characteristic of any Premier League referee these days. So he gets on job quietly. He's solid. And what I do like about it, he just spends a lot of time during the match just speaking to players after he's made a decision and having a conversation rather than a finger wagging and not listening to what they have to say. And I think that helps the players respect referees a bit more as well. So I say, as I said at the start, it's a low bar to be considered a good referee in the Premier League, but I thought he did okay. Right, let's get to the man of the match. We'll start with you, Jay. Who was your very obvious man of the match? There we were texting at the game, but I know you've got to say probably.
Yes, Saliba was he was a monster. What a performance! That was his debut. I can't think of many, excuse me, many better debuts, Premier League debuts, league debuts that I've seen from an Arsenal player. I saw somebody compare his debut to Vieira when he started against Sheffield Wednesday back at Highbury. I think it was 95, 96. What great performance.
Look at him showing off with his research as well. Look at him. That's what this new season's about.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he looks the business, doesn't he? He's what, 6'2", 3, and he just dominated, and he was so calm and very, really good on the ball, and he took his chance with both hands, didn't he? It's going to be difficult for it's going to be impossible for Mikel to even consider somebody else in there or moving Ben White back across when Tomiyasu's fit, because it was such a dominating. He didn't put a foot wrong, and it was interesting. That Muppet O'Hara said earlier in the week that Saliba wasn't good enough, and he's just taken to the Premier League in the same way as that he smashed the French league to bits and was Young Player of the Year, and he's got a huge future ahead of him. He just needs to sign that contract, doesn't he? He needs to just get him tied down, get him a long-term contract, and I suppose if he's playing week in, week out, it might be easier to get him to sign it rather than the way it was a couple of years or last season or the year before, where we never thought we'd get to this stage.
Let's be honest, Jay. If we hadn't played him this season, he would have been on his bike, surely.
Yeah, I can't imagine many Arsenal supporters really realistically thought we'd ever get to this stage where he's getting man of the match in the Premier League, in a Premier League game, away from home, playing for the Arsenal. And not many people would have thought that, because it seemed, the situation seemed so sour and so nasty. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? Nobody really knows what goes on behind those closed doors. Nobody really. It's just speculation and social media rubbish, and actually, the actual written media, they just speculate, don't they? Nobody really knows what goes on. But great performance, man of the match, without a head and shoulders above anyone else.
Positionally, he was superb. He seemed to have an eye on everything, and even kind of getting behind people to make sure that if they lost out, he was there. He was the mopper-upper. But great. The thing is, Paul, composure. 21 years of age. What composure that lad has got. And you were saying about debuts, Jay. Sorry, Paul. But Tony Adams. When I first saw Tony Adams, solid, and you thought, hey, we've got something here. What did you make of his performance, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, just why I mentioned Tony Adams, I believe he's on the next edition of Strictly Come Dancing, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be a role for
you wait until he hacks over his dance partner.
Yeah, well, can you do an offside dance in Strictly? I don't know how that would work, to be honest, But
possibly.
Yes, Saliba for post that excellent game, defensively solid, as we said before. I think Jay's outlined all the things that he did well, and I think for 21, he's obviously got a bright future in the game. He was composed, he wasn't hurried, and we mentioned at the start that going to Selhurst Park, it's an intimidating ground, and for a defender, you're kind of playing from the opposition fans. You listen to all the abuse, you're having to feed off the tension and deal with that. So I thought he held himself really well. I mean, from my point of view, I was hugely impressed with Gabriel Jesus. I just thought he had a dimension to the Arsenal attack that he didn't have last season. I thought his mobility was outstanding, the way he found space, the way he took players on. I just think he's going to terrify defenders next season with his ability to run at them, with his ability to find space in the box. And I think he looks potentially at this stage a real asset to the Arsenal team. And I think as well, to me, he showed ambition by going to Arsenal because he knows he's going to play every week, whereas the City was in and out of the team. And for a player of his skill with the World Cup coming up as well, he needs to be playing week in, week out.
We'll see a different player for sure this season. Now he's the main man. Right, let's do some William Saliba stats. 100% take-ons completed, 100% aerial duels won, 94% pass accuracy. Wow. 49 passes, 7 ball recoveries, 6 passes into the final third, 6 clearances, 3 duels won. And that's, I think that's enough for him.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, like this weekend, you know, Saliba's going to be up against Jamie Vardy, and that's a completely different type of striker. And it's, you know, that's where the Premier League is really going to test him. You know, last week, okay, Edouard and Mateta weren't, you know, they're big guys, powerful guys, but not the quickest. And, you know, even Vardy at whatever age he is, 35, 36, he's still good. You know, he's a pain in the arse, isn't he? And he's terrorized the best of central defenders in the Premier League for years. So it's going to be a real test of how you know, how good he is and how well he's adapted, or quickly he's adapted to the Premier League. Because Jamie Vardy, even like I say, even now, is still a real tough handful, isn't he? So yeah, ultimately, great performance.
I think as well with Saliba is I liked his physicality. Wasn't too scared to put a shoulder back or sort of step across or whatever. And I like that. I like a ballsy defender. If you're going to get in the mix, get in the mix. Don't do it half-hearted, because you'll give away something, a free kick or a penalty. But if you get the balls behind it, which he did, then we're looking at someone pretty major and pretty solid. I put on Facebook that I think it could be an interesting season for this guy. And then he plays like that. So anyway, let's get on to the new boys. Zinchenko, what did you make of his arrival performance on his first match, Paul?
Yeah, well, I was impressed with Zinchenko at Manchester City last season. I thought when he came on in that final game of the season against Villa, he played a crucial part against City back into that game as well. Yeah, I mean, I know at one stage we were getting linked with Zinchenko for the kind of Ukrainian link up to him and Mykolenko, and that might, you know, we're hoping that might have been a factor in attracting him to Goodison Park. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, and our loss is quite obviously Arsenal's gain. Yeah, I like Zinchenko. He's mobile, he's fast, he defends well, and as you saw from the corner routine that he was involved in, he's prepared to listen to manager's instructions and carry out the tasks he's been handed. So yeah, I was quite impressed with him. I mean, whether or not he holds that, you would know better than me, whether he holds that place permanently or whether Tierney alternates for certain matches, I don't know, because that's obviously an area of strength at Arsenal. You've got 2 really strong left wing backs, but I think you could make a case that Zinchenko, with his experience at Manchester City, maybe he might just have the edge over Tierney at the moment. But it's great to have the option of either Tierney or Zinchenko as left wing back.
I think ultimately, Jay, I kind of see when Tierney is 110% fit, then they might include him back in the team and he'll hold that left back slot until such time. But I eventually see him digging into the middle. Do you?
Yeah. I thought first half Zinchenko was good. I thought second half he tired a little bit. Fatigue played a part.
Yeah.
And I think you could have made an argument that you could have made the substitute to bring Tierney on maybe 5 or 10 minutes earlier, because he was struggling a little bit physically. Technically, there's never going to be an issue with Zinchenko. Everybody knows he's, you know, I mean, we said it last week, didn't we, Tom? He was very well respected at City, and I can't imagine Pep really wanted to let him leave, but we're very lucky to have him. But you know, I think I do tend to agree with you. I think when Tierney is fit, I think Tierney's the more out and out defender, and I think you're going to get more defensive work from Tierney. And I think in this team, you know, Mikel has built a very, very strong and deep back line now, and I think Tierney is a key part of that. But you know,
I think pace as well. They're different for pace, because Zinchenko got caught out a couple of times. That's not slag. He just got caught short.
Having somebody of Tierney's quality on the bench to come on in a game that we're winning 1-0, we haven't had that depth for quite a long time. You know, the quality, and I mean, as soon as Tierney came on, one of the things that really surprised me, and I know we're talking about Zinchenko, but one of the real surprises was how quickly Tierney adapted to the pace of the game. For somebody who's only played very handful of minutes in pre-season, he was straight at it and slotted in, and he gave us that little bit of extra energy on that left-hand side that I think it was becoming apparent, Zinchenko was struggling a little bit. Very lucky to have. I mean, they're two of the best fullbacks in the league. There's no two ways about it, and we're going to have enough games, and Zinchenko is versatile enough for them to get enough games each. But we all know Tierney struggles with injuries, doesn't he? He's we need to look after him. And we've got
he opened the library book the other day and dislocated a finger.
And we just got to
saving that one.
Just got to manage him, haven't we? But he plays in such a way, doesn't he, Tierney, where he's so committed and he's good in the tackle. He's a physical left back, and his pace is key to a lot of what we need going forward. But Zinchenko, we're very lucky to have him, and I thought he had a good game. There's more to come, though. Definitely, there's more to come. I wouldn't say he was outstanding, but first half, he got an assist, brilliant. But first half, he was solid. Second half, I thought he faded a little bit, from a fatigue point of view. But superb. More.
Do you know what I liked about him was his appetite. He was eager to get the ball. He went forward. We lost the ball or whatever. He moved back to try and get it, and took the ball forward again. It was that constant refreshing and going forward, and that's what I like about him as well. I'm with you on that one. It was one of those performances. It's good to have it under your belt, and there's much more to come from him. Right, we've had a little dabble with Jesus. Your thoughts on his game, Paul?
Yeah, as I said before, Tom, I thought he for his debut, and a high pressure debut as well, because there's a lot of expectation on Jesus to deliver for Arsenal this season. I thought he fished in really well. I think he had a better first half than second half, but that's quite understandable, really. But the first 20 minutes, so to me, he seemed to be everywhere. He was running around the ground. He was pressurising defenders, not giving them any time on the ball. He had the confidence to run at Palace defenders and put them under pressure. He passed the ball well. He linked the play up well, and he was always an outlet. You kind of knew that if you had to get the ball out of defence quickly, you could hit it and know that he'd make himself available for it. So I think it won't just be his goals this season that will be an asset to Arsenal. I also think it's all about link-up play and bringing the midfielders and the wing-backs into action during the course of the game will be a vital asset for Arsenal this season. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's an outstanding bit of recruitment on Arsenal's part. I was surprised no other Premier League teams came in them, because to me, even the two, when I've watched him at City, I've just kind of thought, well, if he played in a team where the formation is designed to bring out the best of him, whereas sometimes at City, I felt like he was having to integrate into a team pattern rather than the team being designed to create chances for him. I think, if Arteta can design the system to bring out the best of him, then you're going to have quite a consistent goal scoring threat. I think the only concern will be, as it is for a lot of players at the moment, is with that World Cup looming large, those 6 weeks in Qatar, is you always worry about injuries, tiredness, mental fatigue when they come back. But certainly for this first stage of the season, he looks an excellent acquisition.
I think we're going to freshen up as well. I think we've got to get another striker in. You can't just rely on Eddie and Jesus. You've got to get another one in. Talking of Jesus, the old moaners came out. Obviously, it's not our audience. It's not our lovely podcast family. It's that lot out there. That lot beyond these four walls. Moaning, Jesus, no goals, 0 attempts. Absolute rubbish. Rio Ferdinand, who I haven't got much time for, he said, first half, they were really good. Jesus was a joke. Jesus was unreal in the first half. I still want him to be much more of a number 9, though. I don't want him coming with his back to the play because I want him to get goals. He's in my fantasy football team. I think we'll leave it at that. I mean, Sir Rio has spoken. Let's get on to Martin Odegaard. He took a lot of flack, Jay. He's one of my favourite players. You know that. He's creative, edgy, requires very little space. But let's discuss it in a broader palette. I had a little bit of a dust up on Facebook and a discussion with Richard Butler, who I've offered to come on again. He's a friend of the show, so we'll have him back. He adds a nice bit of sort of contrast to what we're talking about. Last season, well, I'm just going to do this because I think it's relevant. Martin Odegaard's chances created, he was first in the Premier League across all midfielders. Chances from open play, first. Chances from ball carries, first. Through balls, first. Passes in the box, first. Possession won in the final third, first. It's not an accident. Now, what I will say to you guys, and we'll discuss it, is that Patrick Vieira set that team up. He knows what Odegaard's like. He's a professional footballer, a former professional footballer himself. He's not going to let us run a riot, is he? He's going to set a team up to snuff this guy out. And for me, that's kind of what happened to a degree. He didn't have an amazing game, but his work rate was phenomenal. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, you've covered it. My view on Odegaard against Palace was, yeah, he didn't have his best game. However, I like the fact that he didn't hide. He didn't sort of just fade. He was still involved, and he still picked out some good passes. And he plays in that position where, you know, you're not going to dominate every single game. You know, like you said, Vieira is a good manager, and they're a strong side. But more than anything, what impressed me about Odegaard, yeah, he wasn't having his best game. However, he didn't hide, and he still ultimately, if Saka, you know, ultimately he like we said earlier, if he takes one of those two very, very good chances he had, everybody forgets about his performance and just concentrates on the goal. Or if he lays it off to Saka, especially the chance in the second half, and Saka scores, Odegaard gets the assist again. You're not talking about his performance, you're talking about his direct goal involvement. So look, I mean, I did see a couple of tweets as well, you know, away from home Odegaard. I think there's like a, you know, this, people have started to take notice of Odegaard maybe not turning up as consistently away from home than he does at the Emirates, which, look, people, I think what has sort of annoyed me a bit is, you know, we've won 2-0, we've got a great start to the season, and that tendency to just overanalyze absolutely everything, you know, when you don't really need to, you know, years gone by, you know, before you had access to every single aspect of a football match and every stat and every camera angle, you know, you just saw a 2-0 win away at Palace, first game of the season, as a good result. And, you know, Odegaard would have been given a 6 out of 10 in the sun, right? But instead, he gets given a maybe below average performance because, you know, it's just because he's the captain, and is the badge or is the captain's armband too heavy for him? All that kind of rubbish.
I was just going to mention that. Is it too heavy?
All that kind of rubbish. I think, look, I'm a massive fan. I think we're very lucky to have him. And he's shown so many times last season that he is one of the best players in that position in the league. And I think people will see that this season even more. Like, he's going to grow, and he was a natural choice for the captaincy. And you could see it last season, couldn't you, Tom? Arteta was trusting him more and more as the season went on. And look, he didn't have his greatest game. However, he was still involved. He didn't hide, and he's still very much the heartbeat of the team.
Let's broaden the canvas while we're talking about, you know, individual players, and kind of say when your best player is a defender, I think that, you know, ding, ding, that tells you something about how you had to dig in, and maybe your offensive players weren't used as well or weren't playing to their maximum. Now, there's a reason for that. It was set up to negate that threat. And as I say, when William Saliba plays out of his skin and gets that Man of the Match award, it does tell you a story. Saka wasn't playing out of his skin. He had a few opportunities. Martinelli was limited in certain respects. And they did a good job shutting us down. So I will not have it that, you know, you get, as you said, the Arsenal Therapy Show summed it up, friends of ours on Twitter. They said, be happy with the 3 points, enjoy the win. And there's too much analysis. Stop it. Pack your bags. Bugger off. Anyway, let's get on to a couple of transfer rumours. Paul, we'll start with you. Neto, 22-year-old Brazilian from Wolves, winger on the left and the right, and could be used as a striker. Would that be a good fit for Arsenal? It ticks a few boxes, doesn't it? Left, right, and striker.
Yeah, I think it could be. Certainly, when you're recruiting players from Wolverhampton Wanderers, that the good footballers have got lots of skill. The team tends to play quite a high intensity possession game. So, yeah, I think. Wolves didn't score a handful of goals last season. I think they're one of the lowest goals in the Premier League. So that might be a concern. But I think sometimes you mentioned before that you can't rely all season on just Jesus and Eddie being the ones to get you through there. So I think to have some sort of recruitment and bring somebody in, even though they might not be starting every week, you just want players to come in who, when they join the team, can add something to the team and can replace the player they're taking the place of. So I think for that kind of fee, given his age, experience, and profile, I think that it's probably worth considering. And also the fact he can play in two positions as well, I'm sure, is an asset also.
Jay, would you be excited about that? Because Mikel, old Spanish Michael, he does love a bit of versatility, doesn't he, these days? He likes you to put a couple of hats on, and that would tick the box, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's a good player, Neto. I think Everton have just signed Cody, haven't they? Connor Cody, and I think he's a major player for Wolves,
which we are absolutely delighted with.
Yeah,
Jay,
great signing. Great signing for Everton, and exactly what Everton need. We watched the game against Chelsea, and you can tell they need someone like Cody at the back, some vocal and committed. And I just think Wolves, having let Cody go, I'm not sure they're going to let Neto go as well. I'd love it. He's good, very good. He's an excellent winger, very tricky, quick, direct. I just can't see it happening. I can't see Wolves letting another major player in their squad leave. But I'd be delighted if it did happen.
I'm a bit concerned about them. They're giving me the EBGBs letting Cody go. I'm thinking, ooh, you don't want to do that. Anyway, let's move on to our next one. Yeremy Pino, 19, Spanish winger, left or right or striker, plays for Villarreal. Jay, seen much of him?
I haven't seen much of him. Mitch is probably your man for these kind of things, but I've read a little bit in the last week or so, and I think I don't know how expensive it'd be. I don't know the numbers that are flying around, but I think that's a little bit more realistic than the Neto.
Well, let's start with 30 million, because that seems to be the starting point, doesn't it?
If it's 30 million, go for it. Any more, then I think we maybe need to put that cash into another position, like a central midfield or maybe a striker, like you say. But young wingers, these youngsters, these up and coming stars. That's the category. That's the table we've been dining at, hasn't it, for the last couple of transfer windows. So it wouldn't surprise me if he pulled that off.
Oh, Mr. Edu Gaspar. He's on holiday apparently, so he won't be tying too much up in the next few days. Moussa Diaby, 23-year-old French winger, right or left, Bayern Munich. Paul, is that a good fit? It is for me. I think it's probably the best out of all these that we're reading out at the minute.
Yeah, I think he's played for Bayern Munich. He's played at the top level of the Bundesliga. He's played regular Champions League football, so he's got all the experience that you want as well. He's the right age also. And Jay outlined there that recruitment in midfield should be a bit of priority for us this season. So I think in those circumstances, he's well worth a gamble upon. And it's not as if you bring in an untried 19-year-old, like in the case of Pino. You bring in somebody with vast Champions League and European experience. So to me, that seems, we mentioned before about getting the balance right between experienced players and younger players. To me, he seems a logical choice to try and bring into the club if he's available.
It's going to cost about 60 plus, I think, to snag him. So they'll probably do 58 plus add-ons and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the final one, Jay. By the way, I've seen some of these guys in clips, and they all do look very impressive. but it is YouTube and they are clips. So we're getting the best. We're not doing that duff stuff where you put it over the bar or any of that. Sandro Tonali, Italian, obviously, 22, defensive or central midfielder, plays for AC Milan. Seen or heard of him, Jay?
No, but we don't really sign Italians, do we? We don't really have. I can't really ever remember, as in recent memory anyway. When was the last Italian player we had? I suppose we are due one.
We had an Italian waiter up in the canteen, I think. Yeah, he was all right.
You're not counting Peter Marinello from the 70s.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, that was way before my time.
He was kind of Scottish Italian anyway, but yeah.
Actually, I've got a signed Arsenal replica 1971 FA Cup winning shirt, and it was from Peter Marinello's benefit.
Oh, fantastic.
He fell on hard times, so...
I'm sorry to hear that.
He was supposed to be the new George Best and all that malarkey, wasn't it?
He was, yeah.
I came back in my DeLorean. Anyway, we look like we're in the mix. Let's change track a little bit. We're all going to get into this all or nothing. That's been an odd one as well, because being an Arsenal fan, I just sat there and I couldn't wait to see it. I couldn't wait to see any little nuggets on Aubameyang. I wanted to see how it was run behind the scenes. I wanted to get a vibe for it, and there's been a lot of negative stuff about it. Jay, have you watched the first three? Have you enjoyed the first three? What have you picked up?
Yeah, I mean, like I said to you last week, I was a bit. I suppose I was. What's the word? I suppose I was a bit. I wasn't looking forward to it as much as most, because I haven't always agreed with cameras being everywhere. I think it's very small chance of the manager and the club coming out of it looking good, if that makes sense. I've watched these things before. The City one wasn't great.
Yeah, it was City, innit?
Yeah, I didn't watch any of the Spurs one apart from the odd clip that was on Twitter, and I mean, they look like Muppets, which we all know they are. And then the Sunderland one, which actually wasn't too bad. But yeah, I suppose. So I watched the first one and I quite enjoyed it, but I haven't seen any of the others yet. I think it's not something I've got a massive desire to watch. I will watch it, but I'd rather. I mean, I don't know. I'd rather that these kind of certain things in the changing room, especially team talks, certain conversations from the manager to his players. I think a lot of that maybe should just be kept behind closed doors, and and I know the club got paid quite well from it, but I think all in all, and I haven't seen it, like I said, but all in all, I'd rather it probably hadn't been made, because I don't think Arteta, there's little, next to little, no chance that Mikel's going to come out of it looking good.
Well, they've started ridiculing his methods, and we did all that bit at the beginning and all that sort of thing. That's being mocked left, right, and centre, including here. But different strokes for different folks. If it works, it works, and he seems to have a real connection. Now, what I liked about it, Paul, was he was trying to get under the skin of players. They've got a little team there that try to bring out the best of the individuals. It's not just about your stats and your performances. They actually sat down with Tavares and tried to unlock his brain, because he started off blistering. His stats were through the roof, and then he made a few mistakes and it kind of weighed heavy on him. Have you seen it first, Paul? Have you seen the series?
Right, I've seen about 35 minutes of episode one.
It's not enough, sir. Come on. Oh, your socks up.
Living in the house of Everton it's hard to find time to watch shows about other clubs, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go back to what Jay said there about your views about Jay, because you mentioned the Sunderland series. I quite enjoyed the Sunderland series. Yeah. I thought that had a level of access that the Amazon series didn't quite get. Just felt I kind of always had the vibe of the All or Nothing series, the very sanitized version of the clubs. I mean, as a neutral looking in, you're trying to spot little things that you wouldn't get normally. I love the bit on the ball when they're doing the recruitment and the 2 or 3 players. It was like watching Football Manager, picking the best teams by ability, stuff like that. I thought that was quite an interesting crossover. And even little things like in the dining room when Saka was getting served his meal, and the way he took time to thank the woman that had served him, I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that, and you can see he's not doing it for the camera. And you kind of think that's really good insight into how the players deal with, because I know the big thing about clubs being successful is that you treat everyone at every level in the club with the same degree of respect to create that club culture. So I thought that was quite a good insight. I agree with you that I'm not a big. I would be concerned about having access to these dressing room speeches from Arteta, particularly when the performance hasn't been at the level he expected. But as a neutral, it's a great insight to watch. I think. I mean, to me, I'm not sure the program's aimed for Arsenal fans. To me, it's kind of aimed for non-Arsenal fans to try and attract a different audience. It cracked me up the way they had to put subtitles for Ben White's speech in the first one as well. A few of the players had subtitles on me, which I just thought was wonderful. But yeah, it's. I mean, if you ask me, would I like Everton to be involved in a series like that? The honest answer is no, I wouldn't. Because and also as well, as a hopeless football romantic, there's certain things about the club I don't want to know. Certain instances I really don't want to. Certain illusions I don't want shatters. I know lots of people picked up on this before, but certainly. To me, the standout moment after that first 30 minutes was Aubameyang turning for training in that goal car and that goal outfit. I mean, that was,
he looked a proper tool. Didn't he?
But if he wants to know a type of representation of the bling footballer with more money than sense, that was that was just showing up there in that 15-second clip. So, yeah. I mean, I will go back and watch a bit more of episode 1.
You don't have to, Paul. We're not forcing you. You're welcome on the podcast anyway. You're one of our friends.
No, but as a football fan, anyway, I do like to watch these documentaries.
I do too. Yeah.
And I do like the insight into how clubs work. But as I said previously, and I think Jason kind of referenced this as well, is that to me, I would not like my team to have the same intense focus as this is given Arsenal at the moment. Now, whether whether the money is a worthwhile payoff for this, we don't know. I mean, you guys would be.
Did you say it was 11 million, Jay?
I read it was the club were paid 11 million.
Sorry, Paul, just bringing up the fee for our family.
Well, that's a transfer fee, isn't it? That brings somebody in. So if you take from that point of view, if that's half the fee towards the track and net, and that's been worthwhile doing.
I'll tell you what I did like. Let's touch on the Tottenham version of this first, because I did suffer a couple of, because I thought, what's Mourinho like behind closed doors? I've got to see it because he's an absolute knob otherwise, isn't he? But the highlight of this, and I don't think we'll reach these standards, was Dele Alli asking the question: do you put your toothpaste on your toothbrush, or do you wet it first, then put your toothpaste on? All those key things that we need to know. What else have we got? We will wrap it up shortly. I've got a couple of questions to ask you. First off, I'm going to ask you, Jay, as we put it on the audio podcast, Overmars or Pires, you can only have one.
Wow. What a question.
It stinks, doesn't it?
I loved Overmars. I mean, I love Pires. I did, but I was 15 when we signed Overmars, and he would what a winger. He would never track back, but he was that good going forward, wasn't he? And he scored so many crucial goals. FA Cup final opener against Newcastle. So many great goals, so quick. That is a tough question, and I loved Pires. Don't get me wrong, but I would choose Overmars just because he was.
You would. Right.
Classic winger, like you just hug the touchline. His goal against Man United, when we beat them 1-0 up at Old Trafford, and he was a game changer. And then Pires was as well. He had like an 18-month period where he was player of the year, absolutely no doubt. And he got that bad knee injury, but very tough. If you end up with either, you're going to be happy. But Overmars for me, yeah, I just Overmars, yeah.
What about you, Paul? Out the two players, who did you prefer?
Well, I mean, understandably, I've not seen out of those two players as much as you two guys have. But I mean, from my recollections and knowledge of the two players, to me, Overmars. I mean, Jay referenced the winning goal, Old Trafford to seal the lead title. I think just on that basis alone, I'd give it to him.
Yeah.
I went for Pires. I tried to go with Overmars, but there's too many more recent memories with Pires in the Wenger teams. I just loved his style. He didn't even look like he was trying sometimes. He sort of slouching across the line and hugging the line. And I will forever be grateful for his contribution to probably the most outstanding goal in the history of the Premier League. That little knockback for Mr. Bergkamp against Newcastle. I mean, it was a bit short, according to Bergkamp, but what a wonderful goal. But Pires was a marvellous goal scorer as well. Overmars was an incredible player, and I was so upset when he left. I could have crushed a peanut or squashed a peanut. Right, coming up, it's Leicester. Is the missus in?
She is. She's listening.
Hello, Stacey. We're gonna unpick this one and see if we've got it right. A lot of trepidation about this match that I've read so far. How do you see it shaping up, Jay? It's an interesting one at this stage of the season, isn't it?
Yeah. Leicester. It's been, obviously well documented that they haven't signed anybody. But and I know Brentford pegged them back at the weekend, but they've still got a good side and they've still got some good players. And they're still a dangerous team. And I think Rodgers is still a good manager. And I think it's going to be a tough game, but I think we'll win. I think it will be maybe 2-1, 2-0. But we've got to turn up because, everybody's just expecting us just to steamroll them and it, based on how well we've been doing recently and the fact that they haven't signed anybody and like I say, they were pegged back against Brentford, but it's going to be a lot closer than I think people, maybe predicting. I think it'll be a similar sort of game against Palace because they're still a good side. They've still got some good players and they've still got that man Vardy who always pops up, doesn't he? He's always a pain in the backside. So I think, Jay,
it's been very, very quiet their end, and it makes me worried because we touched, Paul, on the last pod, the pre-season pod, that maybe there was an underlying vibe or something because Schmeichel, we didn't expect him to go, and he's gone. So what's your perspective of what's going on down there?
Well, I kind of agree with you too. I mean, I was actually stunned when Schmeichel left because when you kind of look at players who represented the club, who know the coach of the club, who know what's required to win league titles. I mean, he kind of embodied that in his performances week in, week out. And I think he's going to be quite a significant loss for Leicester this season because even though he's 35, 36. His reflexes are still top notch. He kept the team in the game quite a few times last season when they could have lost matches otherwise. So he's going to be really, really hard to replace. There just seems to be quite a concerning vibe coming out of Leicester at the moment because certainly you can't expect to improve if you don't bring anybody in during the close season. Even if it's just one player, it just gives fans a boost. Plus the existing team under a bit of pressure through their performances. So that did surprise me. I agree with what Jay said. I mean, I think Rodgers is still an outstanding manager. There are some really good individuals in that team still. I think James Maddison, I've always quite of Justin speaking, quite an outstanding player from time to time. If it's had inconsistent over the course of the season, Vardy is still an absolute goal threat. He still hasn't lost any of his pace whatsoever. So I think it will be a more difficult game than maybe some home fans are expecting. But I still think Arsenal have got too much at the moment for Leicester to cause them a serious threat. I think Leicester's ideal outcome from that game would be to try and sneak a point, to draw. I can't see them winning, to be honest. It's whether, as you said before, Jay, what Arsenal turns up. If a team comes out they expecting to win and don't put in the effort, then it could be a slip up. If they go out there if they start off the Leicester game in the same manner and with the same determination start the Crystal Palace game, then I can only see one outcome.
Right, let's have a prediction from you, Jay. I think you give us one, but we've given you time to reconsider if you must.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight. I think probably 2-1 home win, 2-1, 2-0. I'll go 2-1. Back-to-back clean sheets seems just not something that I'm too used to at the moment, being an Arsenal fan. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 home win.
Well, let's hope Stacey's still talking to you after this podcast. Okay, you're not sleeping under the stairs with the makeshift chairs,
With the dog.
emergency chairs. Paul, what's your prediction?
That's quite a difficult one to call this. I think I'd probably go along the same line, same train of thought that Jay outlined there. So, Arsenal win for me. Okay, let's go for Arsenal 2-0. With the proviso that I'd never write off Vardy scoring a goal or anything like that.
It's a bit like Harry Kane, isn't it? Vardy loves the Arsenal.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I'm going to support you in that, Paul. I think 2-0 would be. Sorry, Stacey. I do apologise. Kind of like cutting you open and putting some lemon juice in it, isn't it? Eh? You don't want to hear this stuff. Chaps, thanks ever so much. And I'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks very much for coming on, and look after yourselves, and we'll see you soon.